The student population returned to the city this weekend, with Nottingham becoming home to thousands of young people leaving their families for the first time. Now, exciting as it may be, a daunting prospect for anyone, but even more so if you happen to come from an African or Caribbean background, according to author and recent graduate Crystal Debrah. Now, the British-Ghanaian former law student's written a book which promises to help those struggling to get to grips with university life. And Crystal joins us on the line now, along with the president of Nottingham University's African and Caribbean Society, Josy Boakye, and the Student Union's Black and Minority Ethnic Officer, Rebbeca Schapira. First to you, Crystal, going to university. It can be a hugely exciting, life-changing experience. You're meeting new people, you're living in a new city, but it can also be quite a struggle, which for you was the overriding experience as a new student, wasn't it?
Yeah. I found it very, very difficult, especially in my first year. I just didn't know what on earth I was doing, so I had to get lots of advice before I could actually do well at uni.
What was it in particular that was a shock to you?
I think the sheer volume of work, how to write essays effectively in the way that, well, with correct English and all of that. So I think that was quite difficult for me.
Now, you've written this self-help book, which is aimed at helping new students to cope with university life for the first time. And although it's not exclusively aimed at African and Caribbean students, you do say that coming from a Ghanaian background, the university experience was doubly difficult for you.
Yes, and that is because I'm the first generation, actually, of anyone in my family to go to university. So I didn't have anybody to guide me. So what I did was I just put together this book called What They Don't Tell You About University, which just talks about, you know, how to make friends effectively, how to deal with your finances, and just to help people get the best grade possible. They shouldn't be hindered by the fact they come from a disadvantaged background.
So for you, it wasn't just the work that was a bit of a struggle. The social life was a struggle too?
Somewhat, yeah. Yeah, because I lived at home, so it wasn't really that easy for me to go in and socialise.
And do you think, coming from the background that you do, that was made more difficult? I mean, being an African Caribbean student going to university for the first time, you say the work aspect can be difficult because of language barriers, but are the social aspects also more difficult if you happen to be black?
I think it can be, because I remember one occasion, actually, my mum, I was meant to go to a dance, and my mum said, no, you can't go, and this was around 10 o'clock. I'm not sure if that's just based on African parents, but yeah, my mum was quite against that at the time.
So you think that the social life is perhaps aimed at an audience that aren't from an African background?
Somewhat. Again, it depends. I think it depends on each household, really.
Okay, now Josy, for you as the president of Nottingham University's African and Caribbean Society, how do you feel about this idea that university as an experience is more difficult if you happen to be black?
I think it depends on how you've been brought up and like your experiences when you were younger, because for me it would be a little bit different because I went to a private school before I came to Nottingham, so there wasn't like a culture shock. I've been used to like having a very social circle and like been through the motions, so coming to university wasn't really like a big deal. But I do know people, like talking to people that do say coming to university is a big culture shock. All of a sudden, like if you've been to a school where you've been surrounded by so many people that look like you, and then you come to university and it's like bigger and there's so like different races and like more like things that you haven't seen, or like people doing things that you don't know about, it kind of gets a little bit scary. So yeah.
Do you think it's less of a colour issue and more of a, you went to private school and therefore you're more kind of used to this sort of lifestyle?
Yeah, I think it's less colour and more like background and more more how you've been brought up and maybe like what you're used to and being pushed out of your comfort zone.
Now, for you as the president of the African and Caribbean Society, tell us a bit about what the society is doing to support black students who are coming to Nottingham for the first time this weekend.
Well, we're doing like loads of little socials to kind of like get people involved, make sure that like they can meet new people and kind of build like a good social group going on. So we have a meet and greet on Wednesday on the 28th. At 6:30, and there's like loads of returners and freshers will be there, so you'll be able to meet both existing members and new members and kind of like get things going and find out what we have planned for the year. So yeah, it should be good.
Now, one of the really great things about university, and it's something you've actually just touched on, is that opportunity it gives you to just mix with a whole range of people from completely different backgrounds to your own, opening your eyes to a whole range of things, to new foods, to new music, new cultures. Is a society which is exclusively for black students not working against this principle?
I wouldn't say so. Yeah, no, yeah, I wouldn't. I don't agree with that, because the African Caribbean Society is open to anyone, and it's for people that are interested in learning more about African and Caribbean culture. Is not solely targeted at African and Caribbean people. So if you are interested in like learning more about the culture and like what we are about and what we do, then certainly join, get involved, and it'll be fun for all. Like our big events like Jazz Funk and Soul in February, it's a celebration of like black music, like jazz, funk and soul. So we have people that play instruments, poetry, singing, all these things that people can get involved in. You don't have to be of African Caribbean origin to get involved in this, so you can certainly come enjoy the vibe. And yeah,
selling it well. Rebecca, also got you in studio.
Hello.
In your role as the Students' Union's Black and Minority Ethnic Officer. Tell us what you'll be doing in the coming weeks to make BME students feel more welcome in Nottingham.
Okay, so Nottingham really recognises that for some students coming to Nottingham, it can be a really daunting experience, and we're so blessed that we've got so many cultural societies that are vibrant and really strong. The African Caribbean Society is just an example of one of them, but sort of the BME network is a representative network for all black, minority and ethnic students, and we're sort of there to provide advice, welfare, representation for any students that might just need some guidance when they're coming as a fresher. And I think that's really important. What Crystal was saying is that some having advice might have helped her, so we're there to do that for our members.
How do you feel about this idea that if you do come from a BME background, the university experience will be more difficult for you?
I think there's definitely truth in that. I think you're coming to a new culture for some people, but it's not something that can't be overcome, and I think the university's framework is set up to support that, and is really positive and wants to allow everyone's education to flourish as much as possible. And so especially with the BME network, we're there to help if students need us, and they can always get in contact with us, and yeah, we're there to help them.
Now, Crystal, you might agree with this. One of the things that I found when I first moved to Nottingham as a student was not being able to find hair salons, not being able to find places where I could get the food that I was used to cooking. That's something that you're going to be tackling, Rebecca, with a sort of social network for businesses in Nottingham, is that right?
We're calling it the BME Service Directory, and we've just started over the summer putting it together, and we've got like a leaflet version and sort of online at the moment, but we're trying to expand it, and so it's a list of all sort of services that could be useful for BME students. So as you said, if you're used to having certain foods when you're at home and you come to Nottingham and you might not be able to get them or know where to get them, this is a one-stop shop of where to find your things, your sort of home comforts, the things you're used to, and just to make your university experience a lot more comfortable and to ease the transition from home to university life.
If only it had been there when I was at university. Crystal, finally for you, having gone through this experience, written a book about it, do you have any advice for new African Caribbean students starting university this coming week?
Yes, I do. First off, I'd say don't just study. Get as involved as you can in university life, because there's so much that you can do. Don't do something weird like fencing. You never know. That's what I did.
How did you get on with that?
Do you know what? I couldn't actually do it for that long because it was around my exam period, but it was great. I've got really strong legs now. Secondly, I'd say manage your time effectively, because that, as far as I'm concerned, you can have a pass or fail based on that. And finally, I'd say don't give up when things get tough, because you can do it, okay? You can do it.